In today's video, we have the latest NHL trade talk on Winnipeg Jets sniper Patrik Laine. We also have a UFA signing, first one in a long time. Anthony Duclair finally has a new home. We also have some updates in the 2021 NHL season and what might be going down. And we also have some other free agent rumor updates concerning guys like Mike Hoffman and Corey Perry. We'll jump into all the latest news coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Now, as I mentioned, we have a variety of news to talk about here today, some rumors as well. So let's dive right in. Let's get started with the 2021 NHL Return and Play, the latest updates that we have here. A couple of things. One, it's very, very likely that it could happen as early as today. The NHL Board of Governors is expected to approve to put ads on helmets to generate some extra revenue. Of course, as we know, the NHL, like many businesses around the world, has been losing money due to not being able to play their normal schedule, obviously not having fans in attendance, and obviously putting ads on helmets and uniforms has been something that's been discussed for a long time. For the most part, they've been somewhat against it, not wanting to really adjust the uniforms too much like you kind of see in Europe. They're just cluttered with ads, and hopefully the NHL doesn't get to that point where it's so cluttered, but obviously they need to do what they got to do right now to generate some extra money to get everything going here, and this extra revenue could really be a major help in offsetting what the players are going to end up owing to the owners based on their 50-50 revenue split. So that is expected to get approved. It could happen as early as today. By the time this actually makes it to YouTube, that actually might even be announced. I'm not sure yet, but if it hasn't been, it should be coming relatively soon. Now, the other update we saw today came from Sportsnet insider Chris Johnston, indicating that there's sources that are saying that if the NHL's all-Canadian division cannot have all teams playing out of their home arenas, that there is a possibility they can move all of the Canadian teams to be playing their games based out of the United States instead. Obviously, we know about the border issue. They have to play on one side or the other for their complete season. That's the only way this is going to work. My guess is it's likely going to be well into the summer, maybe even into the fall before that's completely resolved. And COVID's died down enough that they'll open up the borders back to more normal things here. So we'll see what happens. But I mean, that would be kind of weird. I'm not sure how that would work or if the players are going to agree to that. I mean, ultimately, that's a lot of people to be moving down to the States. But we did see that in the NBA where the Toronto Raptors could not get clearance. But part of that, though, the issue with the Raptors was more so because they were the only Canadian team. So everybody coming into Toronto would be coming from the U.S. and a different country crossing the border, and there was no inter-Canadian provincial travel. So I don't think we're going to have the issues that they're expecting, and this is kind of a fallback plan, a plan B. But I mean, I've heard reports from the province of Quebec indicating they don't feel that the measures against COVID there will impact the Montreal Canadiens. I know we probably don't expect that in Ontario for the Leafs and the Senators. I know provinces like Manitoba and BC are probably the ones that would be the more likely ones to maybe not be so willing to approve those plans. I mean, Alberta's hosting the World Juniors in a bubble type setting, so I mean, I know it's not exactly a bubble, but it would be similar enough. I think Alberta Health would play ball here with the NHL, but we'll see what happens. But obviously, that would really be weird. And if the other Canadian teams had to go play in the United States, would they scrap the All-Canadian division and end up going a different direction and, with whole different divisions? It could really be a game changer. And considering how late we are in the process, that really gives me some concerns about when we're going to get a full decision here on hockey and when it's going to return and how it's going to work and all that. So we'll have to remain to be seen. The last couple of days we've been hearing that they're getting closer and closer to being able to put this to a vote and have everything lined up. But if they don't even have all that signed up on by all these, local health authorities, I don't know. That certainly gives me some concerns. But we'll see what happens. Hopefully that's not an issue and many NHL teams can play in their home arenas. I know there are some other areas as well, like even San Jose, for example, are working on an alternate location and stuff. And we'll see what happens. There's a lot of hurdles for them to overcome here for us to get the confirmation of next season getting underway. And of course, as I mentioned, we have our first UFA signing in some time. I believe it's been about 45 days, so about 6 to 7 weeks. It's been quite a long stretch here, but Anthony Duclair, one of the more prominent names still out there in the UFA market, finally has himself a new home. He signs a one-year deal with the Florida Panthers valued at $1.7 million for an average annual value. So Clearly, that's not as much money as I think he was hoping to get, but of course things changed a lot. In the early days in the negotiations when the free agency period first got underway, I had seen reports that Duclair was rumored to be looking for, I believe it was like more than 3.5, something in that range from the Senators, and they were like, that's too much money. Looks as though they would have signed him if it would have been closer to 2. Like $2 million was the max they were willing to go. And probably a slightly under is what they were looking at, is what the reports were at the time. And it's kind of funny now that he ends up getting actually about the same or less than they originally could have had to stay in Ottawa, where we know that he had a really solid year and he was a really good fit with that team. Now, he could turn out to be a really good fit with the Florida Panthers as well. If he can have a consistent top 6 role, there's some really solid hockey players there like Huberdeau and Barkov, etc. that he can play with maybe, and he could probably have himself another good season. Another player having to do multiple one-year deals now, and obviously, even though he had a solid year last year, that's certainly not the pay raise I think he was hoping for, and he gets yet another new team here with another fresh start. So we'll see if it works out for Duclair, but I think it might have been better off if he would have maybe lowered his asking price and taken a deal with the Senators. But for the Senators side of things, I think they have so many young forwards that they're looking to give a roster spot to for the coming season that they would have been willing to keep Duclair, but obviously not commit too long because they don't want to box out too many of their other younger prize forwards that are hopefully going to be coming along enough to garner that same kind of playing time that he had last year. So we'll see how Duclair makes out with the Panthers. As we mentioned as well, we have some trade talk around Patrik Laine of the Winnipeg Jets again. Of course, he's a player that's not going to escape the rumor mill likely until he finally is dealt. Latest reports come from NBC Sports Philadelphia talking about the likelihood of the Flyers being a player for Laine's services, and that obviously they felt there was a good fit there. Now, a couple of things to note is keep in mind that we've had confirmation from other NHL sources, including insider like Pierre LeBrun, who confirmed back a few months ago that the Jets and the Flyers were engaged in trade talks and was believed to be around Laine. I myself, as much as obviously I don't have the sources like the insiders do, but still, I think that it's a terrific fit. The Jets have a guy in Patrik Laine that if they're going to have to move him, Philadelphia has the pieces they're looking for. They have a lot of great young players. They have some great young defensemen, which the Jets need. And I think if they are going to have to make a trade, that makes a lot of sense. Now, from the Flyers' cap perspective, obviously next year, a guy like Travis Sanheim is going to need a new deal. That, possibly could be problematic for the cap. Right now, they're not too bad, so hard to say. But beyond next year, then of course, in 2 years' time, they have like Captain Claude Giroux and Sean Couturier, both up pending UFA, is going to need new deals, so that's going to be some more, fairly big money that's going to get tied up if they try to re-sign those guys, which I would think they probably would try to do that. So, it could get to a point that maybe they need to rejig some of the players there to kind of make sure everything works from a cap perspective. So, obviously, when it comes to the Philadelphia Flyers, you're looking at like a guy like Sanheim or Philippe Myers could be that defenseman that the Jets are coveting to go back to them. They have some other great young players, whether it be like a Morgan Frost, of course, even a Nolan Patrick. I think Nolan Patrick makes a ton of sense for the Jets too. Obviously, if they wait though, and this happens later, they have time to see if he can return, recover, and get back to playing the way that he's used to after missing all of last year. So I do think the Flyers personally are a great fit for Laine should a trade officially finally take place here. But we'll have to wait and see. Now, this article doesn't think that this trade is something that's going to happen like tomorrow or anything like that. But the writer feels that these two teams have been engaged in talks before. They're likely going to pick things up again. And maybe by later this season or into next year's offseason, that is more likely to take place. But I fully suspect the Flyers to be a player for Laine if and when they finally pull the trigger on a trade. Now, when it comes to some of the current free agents and where they might go, there's a lot of talk speculating here today. I know, for example, there's been talk from guys like Don Brennan of the Ottawa Sun wondering when the Boston Bruins are going to go after Mike Hoffman. He feels that the Bruins are a perfect fit. They would have to, do some small cap manipulation, maybe move out somebody smaller, like a smaller contract to make things work from a cap perspective. But he feels that Hoffman is going to be a perfect fit in Boston and wonders why they haven't already done it. But my take on that would be is I really think the Bruins are also concerned about their back end and that they kind of want to feel things out and see if Chara's coming back or not as well, because that'll impact things. I'm not entirely convinced, like some of the Boston media, that it's all a foregone conclusion that their captain is not returning. And that the Bruins want to move on from him. I just don't really... That doesn't make sense to me, but I guess we will see what comes from that. But ultimately, I do think that Hoffman would be a good fit with Boston on that second line to play with Krejci and DeBrusk. I think it could be a good solution there. but I'm not convinced entirely that they will definitely go out and try to do that and offer him the money he's looking for. But I think another team that could be a big player there for Hoffman is the Blues. Now that we've got confirmation that Steen is retiring, his cap hit will not be affected this year. They can try to rejig their lineup here so that they can make the best use of their long-term injury reserve. A relief that they can get between Steen and Tarasenko, and I think he's a great fit there. That would be my pick if I think where Hoffman's going to go, but we will see. I mean, obviously, some feel Boston is a good fit, and I won't disagree with the fit. I'm just not sure of the logistics around the cap and everything. They'd have to be a little bit more creative to make it happen. But if I were Boston, I would try to add a forward and a defenseman, but I'm not sure they're going to be able to do both. I think they're going to have to pick, and if they have to pick, then I would probably go with the blue line first because it's a little bit more in need right now, in my opinion. Now, when it comes to some other guys, now Dave Poole on TSN also feels that Corey Perry should come home to the Maple Leafs. He's another veteran guy out there with no contract. And right now, I'm not sure that really the Leafs need yet another veteran guy. Now, of course, a guy like Wayne Simmons and Corey Perry would really make your team harder to play against. They did not re-sign Kyle Clifford, so I can understand how he could be a fit there. And, obviously, though, at the same time, they have way too many forwards. They don't have the space, so I'm not really sure how that can happen. I would think if they were going to sign a guy like Corey Perry, that when they were out getting Wayne Simmons, Joe Thornton, that would have happened already. But you never know. They'd have to make a move, though, to move out somebody else. They already have, 14, 15 forwards. A guy like Pierre Engvall is likely not going to be on their NHL roster to start the year. He's probably going to be either playing in the AHL or possibly in the taxi squad. So, really, to bring in another guy like Perry, I don't know. I mean, I can see a scenario happening where maybe Corey Perry doesn't sign right away to start the NHL season. Obviously, he's more of a playoff performer at this rate. His last year regular season wasn't great. Maybe teams kind of wait and see, and maybe he signs a little bit later into the year as teams go through training camps, discover what their needs are, what their roster has, what it doesn't have. Once they start the year and they figure out that they could use a player like him, then maybe he grabs a one-year contract. Hard to say. I have a hard time finding a scenario where he goes to the Leafs, but according to Dave Poulin, that's where he feels he belongs, and I'm not so sure that I agree with that. It would have been a fit had they not brought in so many other veterans, but we'll see. Let me know what your thoughts are on all the latest talk here around the NHL, and we'll discuss further down in the comments section. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content. And give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.